Black conservative women and Black liberal women come together to discuss values, politics, and how their perspectives were shaped. Welcome to The Bridge.
Hello, ladies. My name is Marian, and I am a conservative.
Hi, I am Carmen JC, and I am a conservative as well.
Hi, everyone. My name is Savannah Craven Entau, and I am a conservative.
Hi, I'm Naisha, and I am also a conservative.
Hi, I'm Brianna, and I'm a conservative.
Hi, I'm Camille, and I am a Democrat.
Hi, I'm Paris, and I'm a liberal.
Hi, I'm Melinda, and I'm a liberal.
Hi, I'm Mai, and I'm a liberal.
Hello, I'm Tiffany. I am a Democrat.
Black people as a community need to walk away from the Democratic Party.
All right, so like I said, I identify as liberal, not necessarily a Democrat. I personally believe that both parties, they thrive by us like kind of puppeteering like back and forth division and kind of tearing people down, and it's more of like the people in power don't want us to listen to each other. So that goes for Republicans and Democrats. So I think that both parties need to listen to their people more. So I do think that instead of having a hive mind and saying like, kind of like being in these like, it almost kind of feels like the Bloods and the Crips, like it's very intense, right? Like instead of that, I think that we should vote issue by issue, and like maybe that doesn't mean that we're in the Democratic Party. Maybe that means that we form an independent party. Maybe it's, I just don't think that any person should say, I'm part of this gang or this gang or this club or this club. Like, I think it should be, we should use our critical thinking skills to choose which party or to vote on which candidate is going to best advocate for our people.
I mean, I just think it like fundamentally destroys the concept of politics if any political party is entitled to a group of people's votes. The point is that the candidates have to earn what it is that are vote from us, and I don't think that anyone, any political party should expect any group of people to always vote for them. And I mean, if we look, Black people still have a lot of issues in this country, and we've been voting Democrat faithfully. So I don't really see, like what's the point of that party loyalty. But I also just think that there's an issue with the two-party system altogether, and everyone would benefit from not having so much party loyalty, and us fundamentally not having a two-party system anymore across the board.
I think for me, the reason I would love to see the Black community remove itself from the Democrat Party is because I personally, I really think that the Democrat Party intentionally harms the Black community. I really feel like a lot of the policies that they've put in play have, down the line, been a negative overall for the Black community than a positive. And I actually do think that if you look at Black history, we align more with conservative values overall. The Black church especially aligns with conservative values. So I do think, I hear what you're saying that, we shouldn't be loyal to any party, but I think if most Black people were to look at each party ideologically, they would skew more conservative.
But you're talking about the Black church, which is not.
Marcus, the squeaks are in the wrong bin again.
Not Black people.
No.
So
I'm talking about the Black community, and I'm just specifying that the Black church is part of a more conservative group within the Black community, but I do think that Black people in general have more conservative values.
But it goes back to that point of where we're fundamentally, once again, getting rid of the point of politics, which is no one should be entitled. So even if you're thinking that Black people generally align more with conservatives, that's still saying that conservatives then, it should just that the loyalty to one party should shift to conservatives, which I don't think there should be an entitlement at all.
And I think we need to remember why so many people, I'm from Birmingham, Alabama. And so the reason why my family never votes Republican is they remember why the map flipped, right? The map flipped because they didn't want, they're like, oh my gosh, they're gonna give rights to Black people. And so then all
But
of
that was
those.
the Democrat Party.
I know.
That was the Democrat Party.
Like, if you think about, like, I went to the University of Alabama.
Me too, Roll Tide.
Roll Tide, right? But they weren't letting black people into the then, like,
The Southern Democrats.
The Southern
Yeah, they were.
Democrats
The
at
Southern
the time.
Democrats, which are now Republicans.
Who are now Republicans. They were not letting, like, they supported letting African Americans, black people, go into the University of Alabama, right? So my grandma remembers when all of that was happening. My dad went to the University of Alabama right afterwards, and he said that he felt like a germ. He feels all of that racism.
I felt like it there then.
Yeah, and so that's why so many people, like black people, don't, especially in the South, don't vote Republican, even though my family, like even I probably am more moderate, but at the end of the day, my family, they're conservative. I'm Catholic, right? Like, but focusing on the social justice issue, like that's the reason why when I hold my nose and I vote for like the party that I vote for, because at the end of the day, when I look at the policies and I think of like who's taking care of people, who's taking care of like queer people, black people, like the poor, like really mostly the poor, like especially as a Christian.
But not to cut you off, sorry, but that's a problem for me because black and poor is not synonymous.
I'm not saying that.
Black and
I'm
queer
saying
is not
that
synonymous.
I said the people who need help, right? And I'm not saying, I'm saying personally the reason why I vote Democrat is because I focus on the teachings of Jesus, and I was raised by my mother who has been Catholic her whole life, and my grandmother who's been Catholic their whole life, and the reason why we're Catholic is because nuns from the North came to the South and made a mission school because they weren't educating black children, right? They made a hospital. Like my mom would have been born who knows where, but it was for like by the goodness of God, because of the passionate of the Catholic faith that there was a hospital for them to go to. And all of that wouldn't be possible if, or kind of going back, the reason why our family, like there's a lot of racial trauma that is associated with the Republican Party because the Southern Democrats that are now all Republicans, like they saw them
switch. Can we put a pin in that? I first of all, I want to say I agree with a lot of what you guys are saying. Nobody owns our vote. That's a very slave-like mentality to think that we have to, we must vote a certain way because we are a certain kind of people. I think it's fascinating that you say that the Southern Democrats are all Republican because most of the Southern Democrats, all of them who voted against the Civil Rights Act, how many of them actually flipped to Democrat? We referenced Strom Thurmond. We can go back to history, but talking
Joe Biden. I mean, there's a good amount of them that switched.
But like over time, not many of them died Democrats, right? So
just look at the map. You know?
Can I also ask specifically just a question for you as a Catholic girl to Catholic? I think we're the only Catholics here. What for you, what has the Democrat Party, especially now today, where they stand with abortion for any reason through all 9 months, abortion on demand for any reason, and the Democrat Party is just notorious for giving black people false promises. Well, if you vote for us, we're gonna give you this, and we're not seeing it. I think that the black community we're not only divided between colors, like people that are different colors of us, but we're also divided between each other, right? I, as a black conservative, somebody who puts themselves out there online, I receive way more racism from fellow black women and men than I do from white people. And it's always, oh, well, it's the white people who are messing everything up for us. They're the ones that are the racists. But as soon as I come along and I'm just a little bit different than I guess your average black woman, because they put us in a box, like we all don't like that. We all agree that that's not okay. They see me and they're like, well, she's Uncle Tom and she doesn't belong in our group and we don't.
Coon.
Yeah, exactly. And so with that, what has the Democrat Party today truly done for you? I'm curious.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I don't want to step on the question, but I would ask the same question of the Republican Party. Like to me, in this climate, now that we're a full year in, I don't understand how you can stand behind that man under any circumstances.
I think it's important that we don't focus on one person. And I think
so don't focus on the president?
No,
of the United States of America?
Saying. That's not what we're talking about the party as a whole right now.
If you are Black and queer, you're also part of the Black community. And if you're mistreating someone in the queer community that is also Black, then they have to, like, the Democratic Party takes more care of queer people than the Republican Party.
But for Black people, what has the Democrat Party
They gave
done
us
for
our
Black
first
people?
Black president.
Correct.
Mixed president.
No. That's
What do you mean mixed? So she's not Black?
I'm just
What do you mean?
being
What are you talking
definitionally
about?
true.
So the
I'm just being
Democrat Party,
definitionally true.
so because Obama decided to run, and he actually was way different type of Democrat, I would say, than what we have today.
Well, I would say that the Conservative Party is rooted in more like morality, goodness for Black people. It tells you to work hard. It tells you that you're not a victim. It tells you that you can do things rather than telling you that you're a perpetual victim and that you need some system to control your life and to make a difference in your life. And it's just not true. If you just look at the Black community, the Democratic Party has ruined the Black community. It has literally neutralize the Black community to the point where your vote is not even going to matter as much because of all the mass migration that these illegal immigrants that benefit off of things that should be going to the Black community. They should be helping actual Americans rather than helping people that are not citizens of this country, people who broke the law to come into this country, and you guys support it.
Yeah, well, I mean, I'm also kind of taking a backseat, I guess, in this part, just because I fundamentally just don't like the two-party system. And it developed at a time when Black people were like a labor force as slaves. So I just don't think that something that evolved then could at all be
We can bring it back to the question of...
Well, no, I'll get to your point, but I don't think that this can be like fundamentally useful, because we're talking about something that's evil. So I just don't, I don't know, we're like fighting to make a broken system work for us. And
Which is a fair point.
But this is where we're at, so we kind of have to work with what we have.
We do have to work
right
with
now.
what we have. Intention and results both need to be taken into consideration. And I think that one thing I felt from the other side is that there is a bit of not wanting to think about intention as much. And I do think that intention is where policy is going to come out of. So I do think it's important that we have that, like, an emphasis on that conversation, which is what makes your side not make as much sense to me, because the intentions don't feel pure. So if that's, we can, yeah, okay, whatever, we can talk about the specifics of policies and how that's planned out, but what's going to be coming down the line if the intentions are not in a good place?
How do you know that the Democrats have good intention and they're not just trying to win your vote?
I don't think anybody has a good intention.
So I'm an independent conservative. We do exist. I don't think of conservatism as a party. Conservatism is a set of values that influence your decisions moving forward. I voted for Democrats. I voted for Republicans. I don't have a specific side. And some people here may know that I do not have a problem calling out either on any ill intentions or ill results that happen as a result of what may have been good intentions. What I see consistently happen on the Democratic side is things are proposed with good intentions or what may be perceived to be good intentions. But what actually results in the long run from those decisions, i.e. welfare, supplemental programs, things like that, is that it ends up negatively impacting the Black community in a very significant way. And so the level of dependency that comes from these programs, and then it ends up influencing your vote.
What are you measuring that on? I'm sorry, I just want to know, when you say dependency, what are you measuring that on, and how do you know?
Amount that, so would you say that what you get your food from and what helps you support your family would influence your vote? Would you not vote for the people that give you those things?
Yeah, the people people are going to vote for their personal interests.
So
and I wouldn't see that as being the Republican Party.
So what I'm saying is that I'm not either side. So when it comes to the Democrat Party, what I see is that those things are what are used when it comes to how they want to gain your vote and your influence. Instead of paying attention to everything that goes on outside of it, they know that if they advertise toward those things, they can pander to your weaknesses in life.
So offering a form of help.
You think they're bribing us?
So I don't consider a form of help to be a bribe. I think that creating a system that revolves around your reliance and your dependence and doesn't give you an avenue out of it is a form of keeping you imprisoned to a system that makes it so that your vote is always guaranteed.
The people that need those government systems to feed themselves and their children, what are they supposed to do?
So I don't have a problem with government systems existing. I do think that there needs to be an audit of those systems in order to filter out fraud. And I also do think that we need to make it so it is an avenue toward working.
I feel safe around the police.
Yeah, so I'm a journalist. I go out all the time on the streets of New York, DC. I've been here in California many times to film, and consistently, the police do not help me when I am being attacked, when people come up to me and start shoving me, pushing me. Just on September 1st, there was a Labor Day anti-Trump march event, and I had my mic stolen from me and my hands very aggressively and really hurt. They were grabbed by this young man, and it caused my mic to fly out of my hand, and I lost my mic, and I also ended up with a big scratch. The cop saw everything. He saw what the guy did, and the mic went rolling somewhere, and the cop looked at me and said, well, there's nothing that I can do. And I'm like, but you just saw this happen to me. And I don't think that there is an overall issue where like the police focus on one race more than another for racial reasons or racist reasons. I think there are just good cops and there are bad cops, but overall my experience with cops have not been super positive. I mean, when I've been pulled over a couple times for a taillight out or I was going too fast, you know, I did what he said. I pulled out my license and everything was fine. It wasn't like, you know, he held a gun to me just because I'm black, but overall I've had very negative experiences with the police. So that's why I put down.
Interestingly, in regards to your specific experiences, what I think is happening is that the police have been so vilified by the left, telling people that the police are violent, are aggressive, that they now don't even feel comfortable interjecting in many things. Like, it's actually safer for them to keep a distance than do their job. Because if they come in and they get involved in what's going on, and now you've got 8 million people with cameras saying, you know, they clip that one 10-second clip where the police shoved someone off of you and threw them to the ground. Now the police are brutal. Now we've got, you know, George Floyd type protests happening. And I feel like what's happening to you or what happened to you in those instances, it's like, it is an actual result of us screaming for 3 years, defund the police, we hate the police are horrible. Even back, you know, with like, F the police. Like, we've been anti-police for so long in this country. Yeah, like, we've now made them the enemy and they don't feel as, you know, comfortable doing their job.
Can I ask, where do you feel, I mean, where does that fundamentally come from? Yeah. The F the police comes from what experience?
So I think one common misconception amongst people that look at the conservatives is they think that we just think racism doesn't exist and it doesn't happen. That's not true. Of course, terrible things have happened and we've needed to respond appropriately to those things. And there is a rational fear that there's generational trauma that exists. I'm not discounting that. But I do think that there is as we go on with the police, I think what we've done as a collective is make it so we think all police are one way. When we look at things statistically, Black people are not getting gunned down by the police on every corner. That's just not what's really happening. And when so much of our focus is on the amount of white cops that are killing Black people, and it's not focused on the amount of Black people that are killing Black people, that's an issue to me.
So what do y'all think of police gangs?
Police gangs?
Yeah, like there's gangs within the police. What do you think of those?
Can you elaborate on that a little bit?
Like, inside the police, they have their own gangs where they do things that are outside of the law.
Right.
Yeah, we totally condemn that.
There's good and bad in everything.
Yeah, I'm more so curious about the over-policing in Black neighborhoods. Like, how do you conceptualize that?
Well, when they over-police?
Why? So I honestly, when we look at the numbers and the amount of crime that does happen in Black...
Who is they?
Black people. People in the Black communities.
Commit most of the crimes you're talking about nationally?
Yes, yeah. Absolutely.
Or they just get framed for them.
It's very a chicken or the egg type of thing.
All right, so yeah. So can you repeat your question? I got lost in it. I apologize.
Yeah, just what I'm wondering is, you're saying like, okay, you made your point. How do you understand then over-policing in Black neighborhoods? Because
So
black
how do you
people
define over-policing?
having a large police presence. Well, I didn't really have an answer because I've spent no time with the police. I've never really had an interaction with them because of the fact that I grew up in places where the police were not.
So what makes you think that there's over-policing?
Because of what I've learned.
So I've worked at the University of Alabama as a community director working with the police, and that's why I said green, because I've worked very closely with them. The systems in place where like the white spaces are taught or teach students, like the white students, how to not get caught doing bad things. So the things that are happening in black communities in those neighborhoods are happening in upper echelons too. They're just not getting caught because they're not.
The police
being
are not there. That's why I
over-policed.
brought up my experience was like the police. There is a larger police presence in predominantly black areas.
So are the
So how do
police-
you understand? Why are they there?
I would say that if you look at the amount of crime that black people are committing in this country, like if you go into the black neighborhood, you are getting fed through bulletproof glass. So it shows you that there's a problem within the neighborhood because the people that are serving you are scared of you. The people that live within the neighborhood are scared of you. And to deny that is actually happening and that would require more of a police presence is just a disservice to the black community. Now, I do think that there are good cops and there are bad cops. I'm not here to say like all cops are bad, all cops are good and everything is perfect, but I do think that like specifically black men, they don't have conflict resolution skills. They don't know how to deal with conflict when it comes to the police. A lot of the things you see online is like you could have just complied and you would have never went to jail. None of this would have happened.
Can I offer just a different perspective? Because let's entertain that maybe, yes, I'm just entertaining that there's more crime that happens in black communities. Instead of over-policing, do you not think that there would be more of a benefit to offer programs for rehabilitation and offer growth for those communities?
But why should the police offer that?
Please, let me finish my sentence. Instead of just over-policing, which is going to create more fear and more of the narrative that you all are talking about, which how the police are viewed. And that's what Defund the Police is actually about. It's about taking money away from over-policing and being able to offer programs for the community to grow in a positive way.
All right, so the comply argument. I have a major, major problem with that argument.
That spark you feel right away, that's not always chemistry. Sometimes it can be a warning. Whether you're married, dating, divorced.
Because I would love for you to ask Tamir Rice's mother if he had complied, if he would be alive. The 12-year-old that was gunned down after playing on a playground for 2 seconds. So there are far too many. I mean, I think that we have gotten to the point where these names have become a hashtag and we don't understand. Like, okay, so if it happens to not happen very often, to say that child's life wasn't worth at least a deep dive into this conversation is infuriating to me. To say that it's just, he was a 12-year-old. So I absolutely, now raising a 14-year-old child who is on the spectrum in my predominantly white beach community, and we can't walk the boardwalk without being suspected for something. I absolutely do not. This is my experience. Why is because we're dipped in chocolate.
To go back to the original prompt of do we feel safe around the police, I feel 100% fine around the police because I don't commit crimes, right? And that's just, the reality is I am not going to lump myself in with a community that feels that they need to fear the police. I actually know many police officers. I've dated police officers. There are police officers in my church. Their children are friends with my child. They are people, just like you, just like me. They are people. And you spoke to the police gangs, but I would ask you about the fraternities, right? We can't say that all fraternities in colleges are terrible because some fraternity boys commit horrible crimes and rapes and things of that nature. We have to accept that there are individuals
Organized crime
that do
and
the wrong
hazing
thing.
is different.
Well, there's organized crime in the black community. There's way more organized crime within the black community than there is within the police department.
That's not true at all. You
That's
need to
absolutely
read,
true.
honey.
So reparations are just and necessary.
Okay, good.
Just and necessary. Okay, I actually am glad you repeated that because I thought you said they were just unnecessary.
Yeah, so I'm gonna say, like I said, that I believe that people who are enslaved shouldn't get reparations from people who were never slave owners. And it's just like, how would that even work? And then what about the Black people that own slaves? Like, it's just so much to go into it. Instead of looking for a handout, which is what typically liberals and Democrats do, why don't we just work hard in the country that is one of the greatest countries in the world, and people come here to die? Why don't we just work our butts off to have more?
So, reparations is not, we're not talking about just Black folks, because Japanese received reparations after World War II. So there are times where reparations are just. It just seems that in our country, when it applies to Black folks, we're the only ones that aren't going to get it. That's historically the case.
I think that's an interesting thing to point out, that historically people have gotten reparations. Slavery was messy, and as was mentioned, there were white slave owners. There were Black people who owned slaves as well. There were white indentured servants from Ireland and Italy. There were people who came to this country as free Blacks from the very beginning. How would you do it? And this is a direct question that I would love for one of you to answer. How would we repair through reparations in a way that is fair and just?
And if I can just add, and also, what do you do with biracial people? With people of lineage of both sides? Okay.
First and foremost, we're not getting anything. I just want to make sure that we're clear. We're not. But
that's probably true.
For example, for my parents who grew up in the South in Jim Crow, I feel like reparations for that generation is something that is very trackable and very doable, because they were redlined, they were kept from owning homes, they were kept from being able to build generational wealth. And I think that is a good starting point for people 75 and older that are in the Black community, that you could easily give them what they were kept from back in the 50s and the 60s before the civil rights happened. So that's what my solution would be. Trying to track it back to slavery, yes, it should have happened because slave owners did get reparations, but the Black community that were enslaved did not. So if we're going to look at some way to try to give repair, I think starting with the people that suffered through the Jim Crow would probably be the best and most easiest and just way to do that.
Can I just say, I think that's fair.
Thank you, I appreciate that.
So one thing that I thought was interesting that you said was the idea of generational wealth. With such a small percentage of the white population having owned slaves, I think one false idea is that it was all of the white people that were enslaving all of the Black people, but really only, I mean, honestly, it's less.
It wasn't, but they still benefited from it.
Why are you fighting so hard for a world where we don't try to right these wrongs at all? I'm so confused. Even you mentioning like, okay, well, we had...
I'd love to finish. So when it comes to the idea of this long strand of generational wealth that was left to white people, it's just logically false. There's plenty of white people that are not descendants of slave owners. So if we are doing reparations for slaves, you mentioned the Japanese, you might mention the Holocaust and people that have gotten reparations in the past. One stark difference between us getting reparations now and those reparations are those were reparations that were given directly to the people that got wronged and is going directly toward their generations after. I really want to ask how you think it would work out genealogically, how we would trace down who is a descendant of slaves, and also how it would work as far as payment, because Blacks have been paying taxes all of this time. Would it essentially be Blacks paying themselves back?
Well, it's
and
what
then
I said
also,
with Jim Crow. That's the only,
that's probably what I would do,
to be honest. I also want to ask as well, how exactly, and I'll be honest, how exactly you see all Black people getting a $50,000 check after we determine who gets it, right? After we hire on we're talking about a multi-trillion-dollar operation when we're talking about reparations and how this would end up truly being executed, not in a utopian idea of all Black people get this money, but then you also have to think about what reparations are. Reparations, by definition, do not need to be money. Reparations can also be education,
yeah, exactly.
And I think what's important is that when it comes down to it with reparations, we are giving $50,000, however much money you think reparations should be, to people that just by fact are not educated on financial independence.
So give them education.
Okay, education is perfectly fine with me, but I think one, we have to figure out if you want education to be a precursor to finances, we'd have to invest very dramatically.
I think the Jim Crow idea is perfect because, like, my husband and I, both of our grandfathers were in Korea, and when they came back from Korea, they had very starkly different experiences. One was able to get a job, one wasn't, right? One had GI benefits, one didn't. And
Is
so,
it a black man and a
oh
black?
yeah, my husband's white. So, and at the end of the day, like, I think it's important to recognize that there's some generational wealth that could have been built that wasn't built. And think about the mental, like, toll of coming back from war and then going from one war to another, like Birmingham, Alabama, coming from Korea, and like, imagine what life was like and you couldn't get a job because of, like, no GI benefits were given. Like, yes, legally, maybe they should have, but also Jim Crow was the law of the land back then. So how in the world are we supposed to not, like, and I think that what you said is beautiful about using education, right? Because my family personally, like, education was like our way out. Like, that's why that, like, and I think a lot of Black families, that's why we hold on to education so well. But then kind of going back to, like, right now, the Department of Education is getting dismantled.
So basically, this is how I would do reparations. I think that a way not to burden taxpayers would be to sort of do it like how Native Americans get free college, which is they have to submit their own lineage. You have to trace your own lineage yourself, submit it, and then I think there's a certain period, I don't know the amount of years, that we should not pay taxes, just straight up. We have contributed so much to this country, or at least our ancestors did. We should get that leg up. I went to the University of Alabama. I'm from Atlanta. I've seen so many white people benefit directly from slavery to this day. Like, my best friend in college, her family lived on a plantation that was handed down to her from her family that was made off the back of Black people. And it's the biggest residence in Alabama. That is insane. That is sick. We deserve for our ancestors to be treated with the respect, to just, like, be paid for their labor. That's it.
If I can just interject really quickly, because I actually did hold my hand up. Yes, I think that reparations should be given. There's two reasons I believe that. One, it was promised, right?
Yes.
Flat out, it was promised. Go ahead and do it. Two, I know that it would be the biggest bump to the United States economy that we've ever seen because Black people do not know how to manage their money. And that is a fact.
Americans don't either.
Hold on, I'll finish what I'm saying. I'm not just saying, look, we're a bunch of Black women, so when I say Black people, I'm worried about Black people. I don't care what other Americans are doing. I'm talking about Black people in the space that's about Black people right now. Black people do not know how to manage our money. That's just a fact overall. It's an unfortunate fact. If you want to see the sales for Nike explode, you want to see the sales for, luxury cars explode, give people a bunch of money. It'll be like the Chappelle skit where the Black people got it. It's a fact. But what I want to make clear, or the way I think of it, is that if you're talking about programs and opportunities, we already have free colleges. Just because it's not specifically for Black people doesn't mean it's not available to the Black community. We already have public housing. We already have SNAP. We already have people getting free, we already have people getting free health care if you make low enough that you need it. My family is from South Carolina. My dad's family, my same situation as yours, but we own our home. It's a compound. It's not as big as Alabama, but it's really nice. 3 houses. My grandfather built it by hand. There is a space in people's minds right now that says, I'm a victim and I need help. There's some people that literally just believe I need help and therefore I must wait for the help to show up. And then there's other people that say, I need my life to be better, and they go out and get it and make it happen for themselves. And I think that when we keep begging for reparations, instead of just saying, like you said, it's never gonna happen, it's never gonna happen, so move on. There's every other opportunity in front of you. There's every avenue to better yourself and make a better way for your family down the line. Focus on that instead of begging the government to do something that they clearly don't want to do.
It's a moral issue at this point. It's not even like begging the government, it's just like reminding, dude, you owe us.
Black on Black crime is as a result of underinvestment and over-policing.
Yes and no. Yeah.
When we're talking about violent crime, this is largely done by men. And so I have a hard time blaming under-policing and underinvestment on what I fundamentally believe is a patriarchy issue, is a male violence issue, across the board, across races, across everything. Men commit violent crimes, and they commit them to each other a lot of the time as well. So I can't agree with that. It's just these problems, because white on white crime exists and whatever all these other crimes exist. I don't think it's fair to hone in on this. I think that this exists so we can say that Black people are more aggressive. That's why there's this conversation. But it's a male issue. It's a male violence issue. It's a patriarchy issue. So, and I think that that's not what to blame.
I also think and I would love to know if you guys agree or disagree on this, but it's also a proximity issue, right? Like you said, white on white crime is a thing, we don't talk about that. You most likely will end up, unfortunately, involving yourself in crime with the people that you're around naturally. And Black communities were historically, you have to look at the history of it, they're pushed into those areas because of what? I'm actually asking because of what?
Redlining?
Right, and so, right, all of that. So when you're around those people all the time, that's who is going to you're gonna end up committing crimes against those people. It's the same with white people. So I guess my question is, do you think that if those Black people were able to leave and kind of gentrify in a different way other communities, would they still be committing the same amount of crimes that you view that they're committing?
What you're suggesting is that the Black community is inherently violent, and
I'm not suggesting that. No, I'm not suggesting that. I'm not suggesting that.
Let me finish my actual thought.
Okay.
The Black community, when it's all together, is just going to inherently be violent, and the only way to remove the violence is to let us spread and intermix with other people. That's what I'm hearing from that
That's
statement.
not what I'm saying. I understand that's what you're hearing,
You
but
see
that's
what
not
I'm
what I'm
saying?
saying. I do, but that's not what I'm saying.
Because what you're implying is that when Black people are gathered together, because of the proximity to other Black people, we commit crimes.
No, that's
And
not what I'm saying.
What I
I'm
would
saying
ask,
you understand. I feel like
what
you
I would
understand what I'm
ask
saying.
is, why are we committing crimes?
But everybody commits crimes. That's the point that I'm saying. I'm saying everybody commits crimes, and who you're in proximity with is who you will end up committing the crimes against.
I think from the science background of like generational trauma and like thinking about how men are not taught, going back to what you're saying, men are not taught how to regulate their emotions. And think about all the
Men
anger
are
and
able
the
to be violent, which is a very different thing. Men don't have to regulate their emotions. Men can be.
I'm just
Men's
speaking
violence is
from
always
my
protected.
experiences, like in the mental health field of if we're not allowed to, well, anger is a secondary emotion. Underneath it is embarrassment, hurt, pain, like all of these vulnerable emotions, and men in our society are not taught how to process that. And if you take in generational trauma, all the trauma that Black men have had to go through chattel slavery. And like I said, my grandfather came back from war and he didn't get GI benefits and he has to support his family. Like, what do? It turns to anger. And the reason why there could be, and if you, again, kind of redlining, squishing all of these people and over-policing, it's just, we're creating this self-fulfilling prophecy where no matter what, like there's gonna be more violence in these areas because there's no, like again, kind of going back to, we need the mental health programs, we need education programs to help uplift people so that that energy can go into art, it can go into school, it can go into all of these productive places so that we, and again, like if we like spread people out, you get exposed to different ways to, because I will say that, if you are not taught how to do things and you are kind of stuck in this learned helplessness of, which I don't know if anyone will take that the wrong way, but it's just a term of like, you feel like there's no, like, kind of like we feel like with the the two-party system of like, if you say like, there's no way that I'm gonna get out of this, that is a mental health issue of saying like, hey, there's another way to express anger, there's another way to process this other than picking up a gun and shooting at each other.
So, and correct me if I'm wrong, but it kind of sounds like you're giving these people who commit crimes an excuse for because whatever trauma that they've been through.
No,
I can say
that's
I'm
not
someone
what's
who's
saying
going
it,
through grief and trauma right now. My mom suddenly died 3 weeks ago, and I every single day, thank you, I go through every stage of grief multiple times a day. It is the most I can't cuss on here, but you know what I'm trying to say. And I still have to continue on going through my life. Our bills need to be paid. Me and my husband, I have to be there for him. I have to go through life. I don't get to just go commit crime because I've been through trauma.
Do you have the support in place? Like, what does your support look like?
I mean, I have my husband, and we can discuss that. But even if I didn't, that's still not an excuse to go and commit crime to harm people.
And it's no other option. If you have no idea what to do.
I don't agree.
Like, I will say, just from working with people and knowing, like, if you add in the mental health aspect of, like, we have echelon of needs. At the bottom is need for safety. What you guys are talking about is all the way up here. You can look it up, Maslow's hierarchy of needs. It's self-actualization of, like, knowing what to do. That's all the way up here. We're talking about feeding yourself and all that kind of stuff. That's
so why did they go from I have no idea what to do to I'm going to go murder someone, or I'm going to go steal someone, or I'm going to go steal a car?
So I think when you bring up generational trauma, I think people can experience trauma on a number of levels. I think it's an insult to the intellectual intelligence, the emotional intelligence of the Black community to say that you are going through X, Y, Z, so that must be the reason that you're killing people or robbing people, or and that's fair, but I think the Black community is smart enough to know what is right and what is wrong, and that killing people is not the answer. I don't think that murder is necessarily a result of only generational. I think fatherlessness is a big part of the generational trauma that exists in the Black community.
Who do we blame for that?
And Obama spoke about that as well. I know you guys mentioned Obama.
I think we blame men who have kids and then abandon them.
Oh, well,
I think that's who we blame.
I love that.
I think that's who we blame. I think that's who we blame, which is why it's really important.
But can I say something super fast? I want to point out that Black women were incentivized by the welfare state, by LBJ, to kick Black men out of their home so that they could get more assistance. So we have a track record benefiting from the government by not having a Black man in the house. You can have more money if you are a single parent home. What did people do? They said leave so that the government can be my father. So that is why we are in that situation, because we have a culture issue.
I think it goes further back.
It probably does go further back, but I think that is a pin that we can put in history, where we were incentivized for not having a father at home, and now it became Black culture to not have a father at home. And we went from 85% two-parent households to about 25% two-parent households, and that is a huge reason. And one of the things that I keep hearing, can I just finish one thing, that I keep hearing from a particular side is that we have to blame external forces and look for external help for the problems in our community, because we cannot focus on changing our culture from the inside. And if we keep waiting for somebody else, daddy government, mental health programs, another program, another government grant, then we are never going to fix our internal culture around violence, around fatherlessness, around all of the things that have become common in the Black community that we need to change from the inside. We need to clean our own house.
I just have a quick question, specifically just honing in on the animosity. I don't want to say animosity, I shouldn't say that, but just you speaking about mental health programs. Why can that not be viewed as a compassionate on-ramp for people, rather than looking at it as a victimhood or trying to find somebody to help you?
I'm not against mental health programs. I think that a mental health program would only be valuable if mothers and fathers encourage their children to attend a mental health program. But it has become, first of all, taboo. So if we look at the culture of the Black community today and we said, bam, you have a mental health facility smack in the middle of the project, smack in the middle of where we were redlined and we've been wronged, who would go?
If we put that mental health institution in the middle of a predominantly Black neighborhood, what do you need? You need the transportation to get your kids there. You need the time off work to go there. You need to have the mental space to be able to commit whatever it is they're teaching you. These are all things that you fundamentally need to feel like the things that I need to feel secure, my access to housing, to food, to healthcare, all of that needs to be satisfied. And so I think that's my main issue, I guess, when we're talking about mental health support, is that we're trying to give people something they're going to need for the top of that hierarchy, and we're not addressing the bottom of it.
We need all of it.
Yeah.
How do we address that?
Okay, so I think what everybody is missing here is, obviously, she brought up the fatherlessness, and it's a big problem within Black women, the culture that Black women believe in, and this is why they're 5 times more likely to raise criminals, to raise people who commit crimes. They kill the most of the Black community via abortion, and if you think
think
about—
it's Black women's fault?
Absolutely, Black women have to be held accountable too, whether you know that or not. If you think about the music that they listen to, if you think about the music
All black women
that they
don't listen to
allow.
the same music.
It's, all black
Our
women
music has always
listen.
been a direct mirror into what our culture is. So when it comes down to it as a culture, I think one problem that we have is we do look to the party system, which is why I'm an independent. We look to the party system for who's gonna help us, who's gonna save us, and it always ends up going back to culture. All of our issues end up going back to culture because at the end of the day, we can say we need this and we want this, but we as a collective need to make a conscious choice to do things differently. The reality is, you go to a black community, you go to a white community, there are big differences in what we're saying. And we can say it's this, and that, but to say that black on black crime is not a problem is a problem.
Yeah.
Crime is a problem.
What conservatism does is it implores you, it implores you to take a step into, okay, we can look at this and this and this and that, but let's just trust our senses for 1 second. Like, really look at what is going on around us in our communities and really think, is it all of these people's fault, or is there somebody behind that trigger that is making that conscious decision? Let's not, we can get into all of the things, but in reality, to say that black on black crime or this and that are somebody else's fault is an insult to the intelligence of the black community, and to say that fatherlessness is not important. I'm a single mother myself.
But who's making those arguments?
Yeah, no one's saying that it's not.
Yeah, I'm not saying it's
we
not a
need to
problem.
empower people to be able to
But
be able to
you're
reach
saying
their
black
own.
on black. You're saying everything is somebody
No,
else
we
is
need to
doing
empower
it too
people
and
to be able to
causing
do it
us.
themselves.
I believe in the black community enough to know that we have the ability to make things better for ourselves, and it starts with accountability and not pointing the finger.
Affirmative action and DEI help more than they harm black people.
This video right here never really existed. It got over 8 million views. It's one of the first videos that is completely AI generated, that has gone viral and is making its owner hundreds of thousands of dollars in revenue. The AI revolution is here. You can either cry about it or you take advantage of it, because I've created a simple, free training video that shows you exactly how you can create videos with AI. 99% of the work is done for you, and how you can make money with that. Just click the link down below and get it for free.
Yeah, so I think from what I'm observing, I'm probably the oldest person in the room, because I'm in my early 50s. And I remember very, very vividly when affirmative action first kind of took hold in the early 90s and, opened up Pell Grants to communities. And the intention, of course, was to equal the playing field. It was to allow for people of color, students of color, to be able to enter into programs, to receive funding and scholarships on the same level that the wealthy communities were. That's where it was founded. So the objective, now whether or not it has, kind of swung, because of course every system has imbalances, right? Like, okay, so if it's benefited these folks for this season, it may, dismember someone over here. We understand that because there's no system that is perfect. But in this case, the removal of DEI in this climate has just been gross to me. To sit and watch all of that dismantle, I don't understand how anyone, not just black folks, but really white Americans also, but I don't understand if you are a person of color, how you can support a party that is dismantling something that took, 4 generations to build.
I have 2 points that I would love to talk about. Number one is, being that you have a memory of when this all started, my question is, was DEI and affirmative action, even if you support it from the beginning, always meant to be forever? And if it worked, wouldn't diverse leaders be hiring and admitting people diversely at this point? If affirmative action has done its job and we have hired the right people who have gotten into positions of power, who are on the boards and who are, in these universities and institutions, why aren't diverse people in leadership hiring diversely? And my second one is when, sorry, I lost my point.
So
Why
let
aren't
me
those-
answer that
okay,
question.
Answer that first.
Yeah, so a real easy way to answer that is to ask one of the 300,000 Black women who just lost their jobs. Because those opportunities were not available to my mother's generation. So those folks are now like, they're the young boomers, the Gen Xers. Those are the executives that were just laid off in swarms in the last 9 months. So yes, there have been so many opportunities that have been opened from those programs that are now being dismantled.
Also, there's like a glass ceiling, right? Yeah, you might be able to be in a leadership position as a Black woman, but you're not gonna have that top leadership position more than likely. And then on top of that, I've seen so many, I work in Hollywood, I've seen so many Black women that were at the top of their field, like they get like 1 year, 2 years, and they're just thrown out. They're just like almost like a trend to say like, oh look, we view you guys as human, psych, actually. So it's like, while you might wonder like why these people aren't hiring people, they're trying to hire as many people as possible, but then as soon as they're wiped away, like those people have to struggle to stay as well. And it's hard when there's no support system, you know? Because then you're just left in a white space and you're supposed to just do your boss's job that they've been doing for 20, 30 years that you've only been doing for 2 or 5 years because people just like switch us out like we're nothing. So I think that's like a bigger institutional issue, you know what I mean? Like, well, yeah, you can go. Sorry.
Because the thing for me about it, I am actually pretty pro-Black, right? I love Black people, I love the Black community, I really do. I think one of the worst things that ever happened was DEI, because now, as you said, we end up in white spaces where we are not that appreciated, and we are taking away some of our top minds, our smartest Black people, our most high accomplishing Black people, and we're putting them in white spaces where
I work on Black shows.
How so?
I stay.
May I ask, how are you seeing that that's happening?
For instance, the women that you said were let go, right? How many of them could have started their own company? How many of them, instead of forcing their way into a company that was run by a white man, they could have started their own company, created competition for that other company, and hired a bunch of us in this room. Instead, the goal now, and this is my whole thing with civil rights in general, the goal became, instead of let's focus inward, it's let me focus on this white goal as the peak of what Black success can be.
No, I agree with you completely. That's why, like, even though like Zeus Network, it's very controversial, it's like the stuff on it, maybe isn't the best for Black people.
It's Black
But what I
exploitation.
love about it is that it's Black people continuing to invest into Black media and repping their brand endlessly. And it's like, that's what we need to start doing. That's what I've learned from working in Hollywood, because it's like they use you for your stories, and like our stories are universal, they're beautiful, and they're incredible, and you can't tell me that my story is a trend. That's crazy.
One thing that really is important to me, so I actually made a whole video about the affirmative action changes, right? One thing that people are not paying attention to is the actual results that have been happening. So for instance, in Florida, after the books, everyone was scared about they're taking out our books, our history books. There have been multiple Black libraries opened so that those books have a place to exist. Because I've been frustrated that we as the Black community decided that the overall American community needs to focus on teaching us about us. The Native Americans don't do that, they teach themselves. The Jewish people don't do that, they teach their kids themselves. The Latino, everyone focuses on themselves except for Black people. We're the ones that demand that the general American history focus in so heavily on Black history and try to basically lump us in or pull us in as a general, part of the American society, which I'm fine with. I'm an American, I'm not anything else. But if we want our kids to learn about critical race theory from our side, let's teach them about the inventors. Let's teach them about the doctors. Let's teach them about the entrepreneurs, not just slavery and things of that nature. And let's not just beg for a space at a white table. We can build our own tables. This platform right now proves that Black women can build their own tables and give other Black women a platform. Why do we keep needing other people to validate us?
I don't disagree with you at all. I really love everything that you said.
I agree.
So my question
that was built on the generation, though, that the doors were open through affirmative action that for you to even have that thought.
Right.
That's
the
cool,
thing.
though, because respectfully, I get amazed at this. Every February, we sit down and we salute the black people that did amazing things in the 20s, the 30s, the 40s, the black people that have been, we look at Madam C.J. Walker, we learn about people that have done things well before affirmative action, well before civil rights. So says who that we needed all of these open doors? I'm not saying that it's a bad thing, but I'm saying I don't think that we actually need DEI. The reality, ladies, you can confirm, we are the lowest benefiters of DEI and affirmative action. It actually helps white women more than anyone else.
I think you can say that because you are born into a time when you don't know what it was to experience not having those.
I'll give you an example. My father
doors.
is from South Carolina. He told me about being the one to desegregate a school. He said straight up, the white teacher assumed that he couldn't read because he was black. Now imagine if my father's a journalist, an actually award-winning journalist. Imagine if he had stayed in a space that respected him, that understood him, that saw a little black boy and saw intelligence, not just someone that needed a hand up. Imagine that. Imagine if he was in a space to turn around and teach black kids, because that's what we did as a black community, not grasp for these things.
Can I just add one small point to that?
Can I respond to you after you're done?
Just one small point. Just like even if you think about when they integrated the schools, what happened? You're basically saying that black teachers were not qualified to teach black children. And when they integrated the schools, black women, black men, they all got fired. All those people lost their jobs because you wanted to go push your way into whiteness and then complain about it.
No, because I come from a place where I have a couple things. So, but I'll just say one. Like the school that my mom was supposed to go to, they would get the old books from the white schools. But luckily, we're able to kind of have. That's why I'm Catholic again, because people from the North had to come to the South to build schools so that black kids had an education. That's what integration was about, is in the underfunded, and honestly, it's still a problem, but it's rich versus poor rather than black versus white. And my perspective on affirmative action is actually different, because I actually got a job because my resume, I didn't put my race on it, and I look like a white woman, and the office was all black women, and they wanted it to be more diverse. And when I heard that, I was like, oh my gosh, I wouldn't have gotten this job because I'm black. And that kind of jarred me for a second, because I imagine that some white people probably felt the same way of they probably didn't get the job because they're white. But affirmative action is about making sure spaces are diverse for everyone.
So did you turn down that job so a white person could have it?
I didn't find out until after she hired me and I started working.
Did you turn it down once you were already there? Did you say, no, that's not right? Affirmative action. You guys need more diversity in this company, so I'm gonna bow out and give this white girl a chance. Did you do that, or you stuck with the job?
I stuck with the job because I needed to pay my bills, because it's in this economy. And again, at the end of the day, that's why I was like, maybe affirmative action shouldn't be a thing. But then at the end of the day, if they were looking they picked the highest quality candidate. So at the end of the day, that's why I was like this when I was because we want the highest quality candidate, and we also want to have that intention at least to make sure that we have diversity of ideas. Because my experience as a black woman is different from their experience as black women, because I was raised in a different environment. So I brought to the table, no one had known about queer issues, and because basically everyone in the office were older black women, and they didn't have the passion and care that I have for protecting our LGBTQIA+ community. And because of my experience, I was able to bring something and create programs for honoring the LGBTQIA+ community, but they wouldn't have known that. And so it's diversity of experience too.
The only thing I want to say is that's what we were kind of talking about in the last prompt, is that we're trying to force ourselves into places where we're not qualified. Just because you're not the best qualified for a job, it doesn't mean that you're lesser than somebody else. You just belong and thrive better in somewhere else. So we see with Fordham University, for example, they were having black-only scholarships. I think that's wrong, just like how I would if I heard that they were having white-only scholarships. Black people should not have to feel like we need a scholarship in order to achieve something. That makes us look like we are less than. And
everyone needs scholarships of all races.
But not just because you're black. Being black, that is not That is all to you. That is not an
If the donor
achievement.
of the
Just
scholarship
being
is
black
black
is not
and
an
they
achievement.
prioritize black people, then who are
I'm
we
sorry,
to-
I didn't hear what you
if
said.
If the donor of the scholarship is black and they prioritize black students, it's their discretion.
Would you have a problem if a white person said, they're going to come along and say,
they
I
could do,
want to
I
say.
want Irish heritage.
How do
I
you
want
think
Jewish
the Democrat and the
heritage.
Liberal Party would
Like,
react to that? If you heard
there
about a
are
white
Jewish
person, a
scholarships.
white
What do you
billionaire
mean?
coming around and saying, I want to give this to a white person because I want.
Hey, wait. I need you to show me how to convert a Word doc to a PDF again.
Seriously, it'd be
On a white person to be
Well,
in the
they
school.
try
race,
and hit
though.
all the markers so it can be that way, though.
I
They
don't
have
think that's
scholarships
right.
like that.
That would
culture
not
is
make
different
me
than race.
feel
You're
like
a
I could
black
achieve
culture-
something.
Well, I'm like Jamaican American, so it's like maybe I want to give a scholarship to a Jamaican American person that's like me. Sometimes people just want to help people that are like themselves. That's the reason why in America we struggle to help each other.
Right, but
because
is
we
that
don't look
person
like each other.
qualified to go to an Ivy League school, for example? Is that person have the test scores? Yes, they may be black,
Yes,
they
but
may
if
match
they're already
for...
there and they have this scholarship.
So like, my question is that say somebody is black or say that they're white and somebody comes along and they're also black or they're also white and say, I want to give this scholarship to this person to go to this, for example, I'm just using an example, an Ivy League school. But that person, whether they're black, white, Asian, whatever, doesn't have the test scores, does not have the work ethic to go and thrive at an Ivy League school. So it's not only going to be bad for the school, but it's going to be bad for them because they're not going to enjoy their college experience.
But I think you're assuming like it's literally like an application comes across your desk and it's like black, okay, cool, you're in. I don't see where
That's
that's
not how you get
happening
admitted to
literally
college.
at all. But I think I was also in between mainly with what you're mentioning of affirmative action mainly benefiting white women. So I think like was it the best in the way that it panned out for us? As far as did it do what it was intending to? I mean, honestly, I don't know. And I think what it is you're saying, having lived through it coming in and seeing the differences, hearing that was new information for me. And so that definitely makes me think that it was ultimately a useful endeavor. But I think ultimately we should be attempting things like this. And we should be attempting things that are going to try and correct some wrongs. At the end of the day, like, there is a discrepancy here. Like if we're talking about the amount of black people who are living in poverty or the amount of black people who don't have higher education, the amount of black people that are not homeowners, like all of it, like there is a discrepancy and we have to answer to that, and it feels like everything that this side tries to do to answer to that, you have a problem with. And it's just like, well, I don't know what you want to just not help them at all, and then you just kind of leave them there and hope they figure it out? Like,
I think we're more similar than
Again,
you're
we should
thinking.
not be dependent on people.
So when it comes down to it, I know that you got an implication of the idea that because we think black people get an upper hand in these situations, that we think, okay, if a white application or a black application comes across the desk, we think, oh, they're choosing him because he's black. No, he may have been number one if he's trying to transfer to an Ivy League school. He may have been number one at his community college in math, and then he goes to MIT, and that's exactly what happened. There were black children or black students that were trying to get into Ivy League schools and go into MIT, and they allowed them to go in even though they may have had high test scores at their old school. They don't have the history to be able to uphold to what's happening at MIT. And so, so what happened was they allowed black children into MIT that had high test scores in their schools that are respective to what was happening in their communities, like the community colleges that were in their communities and things like that.
They were the top of their.
They were the top
okay,
there.
I'm just trying
They
to
were the
track
top
it. Okay.
there, and then they went to MIT and they ended up either dropping out or being at the very bottom of the class because they did not. Exactly. Oftentimes when we do these things, like I said, intentions versus results. The intention is there. Let's allow these children that came from these schools and these situations and these neighborhoods to go into MIT. The result is they're going to MIT.
Exactly.
And so they're going to be bottom of the class or drop out, where if they were number one in the school and instead of going to MIT, they went to a state school, they went to a school like that, and things aligned properly, it wouldn't be them being set up for failure in the name of good intention.
I sometimes feel judged or misunderstood because of my political views.
3, 2, 1.
I mean, I don't feel judged or misunderstood. I think that other than these situations, I do feel like I'm a clear communicator, and I'm really big on one-on-one conversation. Like, that's my thing. I'm happy to meet with people of different viewpoints. And I mean, I've done a lot of like training and everything to have those conversations. So I can actually effectively say that I don't feel misunderstood. I just think we come to an impasse and we disagree respectfully, which I feel like in general is happening here. Like, I've agreed with you on some things, I've agreed with you on some things. But yeah, I don't think I've never felt misunderstood. I think that I've communicated very clearly where I stand and how I feel.
I think that's like also, we were talking earlier about like there definitely being a consensus in the Black community. Sure. And I think if you align with that, then you're definitely gonna get less pushback. I feel extremely misunderstood as a feminist because, and especially as a Black woman with my feminist values, one thing, like I speak out a lot against the digital sex trade. I talk a lot about porn. I talk about sex work. I talk about how I think these things are really bad for women. I talk about marriage. I talk about motherhood. I talk about how these institutions have been very difficult for women. And I get a ton of pushback for stuff like that. So I have a lot of feminist opinions where I'm really invested in the liberation of women and what's actually going to be good for us. And like even hear me saying, black men like to tell us all the time that we need to center our Blackness, and I think that they tell us that above our womanhood in particular, and I think that they tell us that because they don't want us to call out the ways that their male privilege hurts us, and then that's something that then I get pushback from men from as well. So I say that particularly in the realm of my feminism, it's like just I'm covered in red lasers all the time from every side of the aisle because I think we live in a world, I've always felt I am significantly more oppressed on the basis of my sex than I am of my race. And when I talk about stuff like that, and people get really, really upset, and people don't want to hear that that side of the opinion. I think that saying these things is actually weirdly enough more controversial, which is really surprising to me. But yeah, it hasn't stopped me, and you can't shut me up, which is.
Yeah, I definitely feel the same way. I feel like because I'm definitely a conspiracy theorist, like I do not trust the United States government in the slightest. And I'm sorry if any of y'all do, but yeah, I just do not trust the United States government. And so many people do, like regardless, Democrat, Republican, they'll just listen like sheep. And for me, I feel like the United States government has purposefully dismantled a lot of great Black artists and great Black speakers and representatives of our race. And because of that, I am like afraid of a lot of things. I'm afraid for all of us, to be honest. And I just think that going forward, we should all, like, even though we have a difference of opinions, be really proud at how strong we are. And we all represent really great values, regardless if they're different.
I think I agree with that. And I want to say that I feel like in this conversation, what I've realized is that it's what I expected. We all want a lot of the same things. We all feel very differently about how we should accomplish those things and how much government involvement should happen to get those things. And that is my big point, and that's where I feel like I get a lot of pushback as a Black woman who's a conservative, is that I simply don't align with, obviously, the majority of where Black people tend to vote. And it's because I feel that almost every single time the government has stepped in to help the Black community, the result has been awful for the Black community, which has been said. And because of that, I want us to pull back from government involvement. It's not a Black-white thing. It's a how much power do we give this entity that has proven to be a failure time and time again, and how do we pull back into our own community? How do we support the Black community from the inside? And I think that we can all agree that that needs to become more of a focus than what we hand over to corrupt governments to be in charge of.
For myself, to the prompt of how we are perceived or received, I should say, one thing that I've noticed personally, as you like to say, like I talk to people directly, you said this. What I've noticed is that a lot of Black people immediately judge me because I say I'm a conservative. They assume that I'm anti-immigrant. They assume that I don't want, I want to be white. All of these crazy things that I'm in the comments of my, you guys know. The comments are just crazy what they assume about me. But once they start speaking to me, as you all saw, like you'll learn that I am pro-Black. I do want the best for us. But what I've learned also is that when I speak to people directly, a lot of Black people that think that they're Democrats are actually closeted conservatives. And that's going back to my point way at the beginning, we have conservative values overall. We do love, family values, et cetera. And people are no longer comfortable having conversations. And I have to say that a lot of this is, in my opinion, because of the left being very, not just, cancel culture and almost violent sometimes to people when they say they're, hello, yeah. Yeah. There is a discomfort when it comes to having these conversations. So I'm really happy we've been able to do this. But as far as perception, I think that we would all agree that, people immediately assume things about us that probably just aren't true.
When it comes to the prompt, I think something that's really important is we often call the Democrat Party the Democrat plantation because, and it's true, but the reason why is because of this sense of ownership that both the Democrat Party and the Black community have over Black people, both of our minds and how we conduct ourselves, who we are in our religion, and all these other aspects of who we are. Often, I think we're on the internet, we get our comments of people saying that we're traitors to our community, we want the worst for our community, we're trying to be in white alignment, we're trying to be white, we want to find our white saviors and all of these. I mean, that's truly the tip of the iceberg. But the hate we receive from our own community when really we just want us to be better and to see our full potential is so disappointing.
And, can I ask a question regarding that? Mm-hmm. I hear what you're saying, and again, there's a lot of things that we agree on. However, I don't hear you all saying how your party is helping the Black community, number one.
I'm not in a party.
Okay, so,
yeah.
but we're talking Republican, we're talking liberal versus conservative. How has the conservative party, and specifically this administration, benefited us, number one? And two, help me understand, because I genuinely came here with this question, specifically for Black women. How can you allow this man in the office to represent you? Please help me understand.
Yeah, of course. A couple of the things that he did in his first term where, he was being called racist, all of a sudden all these people like Oprah, they loved him, and then he started running as a Republican, and now he's this racist white man that hates Black people. I mean, he's the one who permanently funded HBCUs and minority institutions. Why in the world would a man who hates Black people want to give funding to something that is I've been on HBCUs. I am so glad that our community has something like that where people can grow and thrive in somewhere, around people that look like us, right? The First Step Act, helping people after they've gotten out of prison to re-enter society rather than just being plopped back out on the street.
People such as those few celebrities, or is this something that...
Minority individuals, I mean, mainly Black people.
Okay.
Those are just a couple of things. I mean, why would a racist... Why would a racist...
From the first to this...
I mean, if he was gonna ruin America, he would have done it in his first term. I don't know why everybody thinks like, oh, now Trump is really gonna ruin America.
He did it before he even stepped in that office.
Why would a racist hold a Black History Month celebration this past February where
why
he
is he
invited
dismantling
all of
it now?
Well, I don't agree that he's dismantling it, and that's where we disagree.
I think he's just trying to make history. That's what I think.
He's trying to what?
He's a megalomaniac that's trying to make history. He just wants to be, if he can't be the best president, he's gonna be the worst president.
But I want to know what what the Democrat Party is in for you. I named a few things. The Conservative Party mainly stands against the Black genocide, which is abortion. I mean, Black women are less than 40% of the population, yet we're less than 13% of the population.
Oh my gosh. I guess here's my question then, because you said a lot of things that I agree with, but my question is, I guess, do you think that segregation should have stayed?
What?
I'm asking, no, the reason I'm asking just in general, the reason I'm asking is because when we were segregated, it seemed like you were saying this, and if I'm misunderstanding, please tell me. When we were segregated, we did have our own infrastructure, we did have our own internal economy, we had all these things. So and then you said that, a lot of the Black community tried to assimilate, integrate, get what white people wanted, But do you think that the black community was more successful when segregation was in
I don't
play?
think I know. I know that is statistically factual. We had more homeowners. We
Did we
had
have
more
access to the same
entrepreneurs.
resources?
Hold
Because
on.
that was the whole point of integration.
No, hold on. We had more homeowners, more entrepreneurs. We had more families that were sticking together, higher marriages. We did not abort our babies as much. We did not do as many drugs. So literally, statistically, we were doing better as people. Now, it's...
The government fucked us.
Agreed. Now, I want to go to your point about what did the Conservative Party, right now, what are they doing? One thing that no one's mentioned in this is illegal migration. And I have many videos talking about how when you allow millions of people who are not, classically educated, right? They don't have a degree from something. When they come in, the jobs that they take are blue-collar jobs. I have multiple members of my family that have criminal records. They need blue-collar jobs. If you look at the results of the Mass Deportation Acts, Black men are getting jobs in trucking. They're getting jobs in home improvement. They're getting jobs in moving and storage. This is a fact that was direct. And I just was talking to her about this outside. They are taking low-cost rental apartments. I'm a real estate agent. I did the math on this. In New York City, I'm in New York City. There are 100,000 homeless people in New York City. There are 600,000 illegal migrants in New York City. There's 20% of the illegal migrants are living in apartments, right? So that's, if you do those quick numbers, that's 120,000 or 120,000 apartments being taken up that could be going to the 100,000 homeless people. And of the homeless people, 60% of them are illegal migrants. So the reality is, we need to talk about this and how that sector of the population coming here is affecting especially low-income Black and brown people. Also, abortion needs to be mentioned because the reality is, as we abort more of our Black babies, we become or keep staying a lower minority in this country. There are somewhere around 400,000 Black babies aborted every year, not just babies. There's 1 million abortions every year. There's 400,000 Black babies aborted every year. Black people only make up 13% of the entire US population. So if we kept 1 million people every 2 years, we would literally stop being a minority in this country in the course of like 10 years.
Yeah, so I definitely feel often misunderstood because I am very nuanced. I personally, based upon the Word of God, I am very much against abortion and wouldn't justify having one myself. I have one child, I've had one pregnancy inside marriage. So I'm very much, we are, that from the womb that God knew us. That's what Jeremiah tells us. So I 100% agree there. The issue that I have, though, with the Conservative Party is after that child is here, the programs that are no longer available, so no, this is historically true. And the difference between this current administration, and again, like me going back to the 90s when I was first kind of starting off in corporate America, I remember having like these debates over water coolers or whatever with my coworkers that were voting Republican and I was Democrat, and we could disagree on where the tax dollars were going to be spent and then go back, to working together and we were fine. But today, what we're disagreeing upon is whether or not someone has the right to snatch up people off of the street or not. Or we're disagreeing on whether or not, let's see, did George Floyd actually get murdered? I mean, I don't know if his knee was actually placed. Well, maybe that didn't happen. Or, maybe Tamir Rice could have complied. These are different arguments than these previous decades. And it's difficult for me to, and again, I think that a lot of it probably does have to do with my generation because I've lived through some things and seen some things, and not to say that, folks that are younger than me haven't experienced things, but the reality is that we're talking life and death. We're talking value and not having value. And I don't understand, especially behind Donald Trump. This man is so beyond insane. Not even talking about, just falling asleep, in press conferences and the stuff that we make fun of.
You mean Biden?
No, sweetie, this happened this week. This is exactly my point. Because I could respect, like if you want to vote for Trump and you have your reasons that, usually kind of anchor around abortion, I get that. because that is a personal conflict for me. I understand that. However, the problem that I have is like the lack of accountability and the dismissive, like what is being seen before your eyes. He fell asleep for the last 2 or 3 months, and it was, are we talking about Biden? No, we're talking about Trump. And that's only one minor infraction.
Were you this vocal when Biden was doing it? Were you vocal about Biden?
And that very much speaks to the news that you watch.
I don't watch.
But honestly, when it comes to information that goes back and forth, I think one really critical thing you said when it comes to the topic of abortion is the idea that when children enter the world, we push for life until the life enters the world. I hear it all the time from your side. But I think when it comes to lack of information, I think one thing that is really important to remember is that there are tens of thousands of pregnancy centers and organizations and places that want you to keep your baby, not just so you keep the baby, but they have not even just diapers and formula, because as a single mother myself, I know it's more than that. We're talking about housing, we're talking about counseling, we're talking about I mean, so many resources, so much money that goes unused as a result of this huge conglomerate of the.
Ladies, fair warning. This makes men pay attention. She walks by and
The amount of children that are aborted, the conglomerate of people in the Black community that don't even know it exists because there's a Planned Parenthood on the corner.
I will say, like, my in-laws are very conservative. When they first met me, and they just they would say like those Democrats, all that stuff. They put me in a box, and because really personally, I thought they were really closed-minded and really judgmental. But what I realized, the more that I realized that I was being closed-minded and judgmental too, which a lot of people on the left can do, that hurts conversation and being able to move together. For a long time, I was put in a box of you're one of those blue-haired liberals, one of those snowflakes, all that kind of stuff. But like you were saying, I'm Catholic, I was raised conservative, I went to a March for Life when I was in high school. When you label yourself liberal or conservative, there's a lot of baggage to it. And I, like you said, I'm more of an independent at the end of the day. And the problem is as of saying I'm even just having to choose a side here, it takes away, I can see how I've been dehumanized because hey, I'm a little bit more liberal. In my experience in the South, if you identify with being more liberal, you tend to be dehumanized as a blue-haired snowflake type of thing. So luckily, through conversation and compassion, there's a possibility to grow from that, but it's easy to lose relationships, lose respect a lot of times from people because you get put in a box and the most extreme things that they hear, they associate you with that. And I imagine you guys feel the same way.
Today really confirmed for me that, kind of bouncing off of what Nyesha said earlier, is the idea that we all have a lot of the same goals. We all want what's best for our community. We do, and we believe our community can be better. It's just very, very totally different opposite worlds as to how we think it can be executed or should be executed. But I think a lot of us here were liberals once. Were raised as liberals. I grew up in a household that a lot of my family supported the Black Panther movement and all of that good stuff. And we can get into that another time. But I understand where the heart is. I do. Sometimes I kind of miss my liberal heart because it was just I want to help, right? But how you help is rather different, and what you think help actually is, aside from the intention, that's where things start getting rocky for me. But I love you guys. I was liberal once too, and I don't think I'm necessarily better than anybody else. I just think that we see the world differently.
Well, I was reflecting on what you said earlier about, do we think about intention or do we think about impact? Earlier today, when we all got here, I had some positive interactions with people from the other side, and it is interesting to juxtapose that against how starkly different our politics are, and how I would think the impact of your politics is quite negative for myself and people that I care about, and even people I don't care about. I think that that's a hard dichotomy to hold, but I do ultimately think that the division, like we've been talking about, of even saying, okay, we're the conservatives, we're the liberals, we're the whatever, already starts the conversation in a rocky place. So if I were to, fantasize about some utopia, it would be where we can all, I feel like so many people I talk to about politics ultimately at some point think, I'm an independent thinker, I'm an independent. Everyone kind of likes that idea. And I would like if we can materialize that more and really all allow independence and a bit of free thinking to occur. And then I think we'll have a conversation that's much more productive.
I think that we can all agree that we should not trust the government. We should build our own. And I know that you guys have separate opinions than me, but you guys are Black women and you guys are in a space that's very white dominated. And I hope you guys give them hell in those fucking spaces. Seriously, because I know y'all are white supremacists. I can look at y'all and know y'all don't want to be white, so.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Right.
it's empowering.
If I'm being totally honest, for me, I'm leaving the conversation a bit frustrated. And I say that because I don't have more clarity on how, as a Black woman, you can support the Conservative Party in this day and time. I still am not clear. I have not had a moment, and there's nothing that has come to me other than I just think that we live in alternate universes. And that primarily has to do with the media that you're watching. I call false news, the reports. And every now and then there's a mention of Jesus, and then you get the church to kind of align with deception on so many levels that it's just difficult for me to, really genuinely respect that line of thinking. And I feel that there's a cognitive dissonance there. There's a disconnect. I am leaving with that same kind of, I don't understand it. However, above all, at the end of the day, at the beginning of the day, in the middle of the day, I see you all as my sisters in Christ. And that to me is primary. I'm very much kingdom over clique all day long, above all else. So I can appreciate that. And that I can say that I respect, even with the disagree, the different views. I can respect that, if you believe that Jesus is the Son of God, and then we're sisters, period. And then we can respect one another on that. But politically, it's difficult for me to fully understand where you're at.
Yeah, I want to agree with you because I'm also feeling a little bit frustrated. I feel like we all kind of got a little bit of what we wanted to say out, but we haven't really moved forward as a community. And
We
just
had an
like
hour and a
you, I know. And this is a conversation that's not going to take hours to fix. It's not going to take days. It's literally going to take years. And this is where we start. Is that we start with conversations like this. The fact that you all and all of us were able to come in here today and simply sit down. Some of you guys said you were nervous. Some of you said, oh, I hope I say this as I say that. But we did our best, and that's all we could do. And again, like you said, I'm a believer that Jesus Christ is the Son of God. All of you are my sisters, and if I saw you on the road, I wouldn't be asking if you were conservative or Democrat to help you, and you needed help, I would help you because you're a human being. And I think that's what we need to get back to.
For me, to wrap it up, I feel this little tiny bit of frustration, which is that in regards to, just a smidge, I feel like, I listened very closely to what everyone was saying, and it sounds like the majority of you, and this is not judgment at all, the majority of you didn't necessarily grow up or live in very urban Black spaces and maybe aren't necessarily as directly rooted in the lower income Black community. And one of the things that, I just remember you said that you were in a white area now, so maybe I'm incorrect. But one thing that I've, for myself, noticed is a lot of us over here, we're saying we used to be liberals. And it feels like, to your point, you're saying you just can't understand how people can cross over, but I would wonder if anyone, I would wonder if anyone has actually done research and actually like intentionally listened to what the other side is saying and is suggesting. When I speak to people, especially about Trump, a lot of it is just anger about things that were taken in snippets of what he said. But I ask people, well, did you know his policies prior to the election? Did you know what he was running on? Did you know his plans? And a lot of people did not. They say, how can you be comfortable with what he's doing? And we're like, we voted for it. Like we knew what he was going to do because we listened to his plans prior to the election. So my only takeaway is that we all know, or most of us on this side, we know very firmly what it is to be a liberal or a Democrat, and then what it is to be a conservative. And so I would just hope that not just you guys, anyone that's watching this that is, like, I'm firmly in my party, look at both sides. Just take the time, be fair to yourself, and actually receive the information being given, unpartisan your heart, and listen to both sides, and then come up with an actual decision of how you truly feel and where you more align.
I wish that in this situation we actually didn't say where we aligned politically and just spoke from our values, because I think that would have been a more interesting conversation, because I also do feel like I'm leaving a little frustrated and not being able to say everything that I wanted to say, but also just with no clarity on certain things. And so I'm the type of person, like I said, one-on-one conversation, I would love to just chat with either of you, just personally, because I think that's when you can really get down and understand somebody's tone and tension. I'd love to have that conversation because I work in politics a lot, so I have done the deep dive. But I am appreciative knowing that at the end of the day, as you said, it really just comes down to what is best for the Black community. And it's just, we see different routes. And so I do think that there could absolutely be a common ground outside of this type of scenario, that we could all sit down and just have a productive conversation on what's best for the community.
Okay, so I think that what I took from this conversation the most is that Black women just need to bow out and let Black men lead. That's what I took from it. I took that everybody just need to follow the leadership of Black men and let them actually make decisions that is going to benefit the Black community. And you be the helpmate. You help Black men uplift the community and do the things that you need, because a lot of the problems that are coming from the community is because of Black women. That's what I take from it.
I feel exactly what I said before, which is we all have good hearts. We all want the best for the Black community. We all have different ways in which we think that we should get there. And I just hope that people see the failures of every administration trying to do more for anybody and how that has actually tended to backfire. And I also pray that everybody can understand that you can understand that a person is better for the seat of President of the United States without supporting every single thing he says and does. And I hope that everybody can do that no matter who they vote for. So if we say that we are conservative, it doesn't mean that we love Donald Trump. Maybe somebody does, but it means that we knew that Kamala Harris was not going to do it. Thank you so much.
I'm just grateful for this opportunity. I'm hoping that we'll be able to forge forward and start canceling cancel culture with compassion. I feel like we have been able to walk with each other and know that, even though some things that you guys have said, they've kind of hurt my heart and made me feel a little frustrated too. I think that there are probably some things that we said as well, and there's so much beauty and growth in us being able to walk in the true definition of compassion, which is to suffer with. Even though it's uncomfortable and it's hard, if we work together and suffer with each other, then we can find a solution that's in the middle.
Okay.
Yes. Come here. You guys are the best people. I want to hug you.